The Speyside Way, 85 miles from Newton Moor to Buckie in 7 days in May 2024. I spent 7 spectacular days walking 120 miles along the Speyside Way from Newton Moor to Buckie, characterized by magical ancient Caledonian pine forests, riverside paths, old railway track beds and malt whisky distilleries. Day 1, Newton Moor to Kincraig, 15 miles. Note that I always walk more than the so-called official mileage because the book always lies and I often make detours to see interesting things off trail. The official length of the Speyside Way is 185 miles, but I actually walked 120 miles. This is the start of the Speyside Way in Newton Moor. One of more than 100 wildcats that are to be found along Newton Moor's 6-mile wildcat trail. Needless to say, I didn't see even a whisker of these very rare shy creatures. Rowan flowers on the trail. Rowan is also known as mountain ash. It has astringent and protective properties, as well as numerous culinary, medicinal, mythological and magical ones. The wild flowers along the trail were abundant. I counted over 70 different species in flower. Scottish broom was abundant along the whole trail. Broom has traditionally had numerous medicinal uses as a diuretic and cathartic, but it is safer to avoid it due to its toxicity and potentially harmful effects on the circulatory and nervous systems. My first crossing of the River Spey at Kinoussi. The Spey is Scotland's second longest river, 98 miles long, and is the least polluted river in Britain. I have never before seen such a carpet of pink sorrel just outside Kinoussi. It is edible and can be used in salads, but it contains oxalic acid which can inhibit calcium absorption, and large quantities should therefore be avoided. Red whortleberry or cranberry flowers. The berries are edible but quite tart, so they are often used for making jam. A lovely lochen in the Inshriach forest between Kinoussi and Kincraig. I met a local chap who told me that the dreaded midges, which never seem to bother me, become increasingly less prolific the further east you go in Scotland, and are almost non-existent by the time you reach the east coast. Day 2, Kincraig to Boat of Garton, 16 miles. The bridge across the Spey in Kincraig. I was amazed to discover that I had managed to capture a swallow flying across as I took this photo. This bracket fungus is called chicken of the woods, and it is supposed to be quite a delicacy. I spent most of the day walking through lovely birch woods like this. Amazing architectural growth on a birch tree. Arriving in Aviemore, I diverted slightly off trail to visit the Aviemore Stone Circle, which is probably about 4,000 years old. I had previously visited it 16 years ago in May 2008. The rowan tree had grown considerably since my first visit. Marsh marigolds just outside Aviemore. Every part of this plant is a strong irritant, and although it has traditionally had numerous medicinal uses, it should be used with caution. These pine trees on the edge of the Abernethy forest had quite an impact on me. On the stretch between Aviemore and Boat of Garton, I suddenly became aware of a different atmosphere. In fact, I was almost bowled over by a sort of powerful energy as I entered the point where the pine trees started. It was like walking over a threshold. I was initially unable to understand what I was experiencing, and after walking on a bit, I decided to retrace my steps and walk the section again. The forest there felt much more alive, vibrant and magical than any other forest I have walked through in Scotland. It felt like the trees were communicating with each other and that I was an outsider, although not an unwelcome one. I simply didn't feature in their world, although there was a sense of comforting permanence. Never before have I been so strongly aware of the vast underground network of cooperation that takes place between trees. I discovered afterwards that they are part of what is left of the ancient Caledonian forests, which once covered most of Scotland, and that they have an unbroken lineage dating back to the last ice age and beyond. There are apparently lots of legends about them. No wonder I felt their power. I felt a great sense of loss as I walked out of the Abernethy forest the following day and returned to a more modern type of forest, but the energy of those trees has remained with me ever since. Day 3, Boat of Garton to Granton-on-Spey, 16 miles. I had the most wonderful, very wet walk through the magical, atmospheric Abernethy forest as I headed towards Loch Garton of Osprey fame. The Abernethy forest, all the more magical in the rain. I decided to make the 2-mile detour of the trail to visit the Osprey Centre at Loch Garton, and it was definitely well worth the extra mileage. Loch Garton is famous for being the first place the ospreys returned to in the 1950s, after a period of extinction in the UK. I saw a couple of ospreys circling in the air above the lake, but the centre's webcam was showing no sign of any action taking place on the nest, because apparently a young male osprey had destroyed the eggs of the breeding couple after they had been laid. Oh, look at this! Magic! This is Loch Garton, famous for ospreys. And I'm on my way to the National Osprey Centre. It's a diversion off the trail by almost a mile, but seeing as I got a short day today and I've got the time because I can't get into my B&B until 4:30 anyway, I thought I'd make the diversion. Total serenity here. I actually saw 2 ospreys earlier on as I was coming out of Boat of Garton. They were circling in the air above the lake. I guess they're probably having their mid-morning snooze by now. Whoa, total silence. You can't blame them for choosing this place. Right, I think the centre's just up the road a bit, so off I go. Bird cherry flowers. The spring flowers provide an early source of nectar for bees, while the fruit is bitter and is used mainly for making jam, liqueur, or dyeing wool. After sheltering in the rain in a charming little cafe in Nethy Bridge, where I had a coffee and a cheeky piece of carrot cake, I continued my journey to Granton-on-Spey along an old railway track. Day 4, Granton-on-Spey to Ballindalloch, 20 plus miles with some pretty extreme gradient. This photo shows chickweed wintergreen or Arctic starflower, which carpets the floors of a lot of the woods and forests in Strathspey. It is a member of the primrose family and is neither a chickweed nor an evergreen. It has wound healing, anti-inflammatory, emetic and diaphoretic properties. I walked through many more miles of magical ancient Caledonian forest. I now understand the meaning of forest bathing. I think their gentle, ever-pervasive magic helped to power me through my long day. I crossed the River Spey a few times. Walked along another old railway track. Had to squeeze through numerous stiles like this one. And walked through lots of fields that have been churned up by Highland coos. Ankle-wrenching stuff, with pretty babbling brooks running through them. Crossing the River Avon at the end of my long day, with the Porter's Lodge to Ballindalloch Castle in the background. Almost half of Scotland's 100 or so malt whisky distilleries are scattered around Speyside and Strathspey. The Ballindalloch distillery was the first of at least 20 distilleries that I walked past on the trail. Day 5, Ballindalloch to Craigellachie, 16 miles. Leaving Ballindalloch on a gorgeous sunny morning, I crossed this old railway bridge and followed an old railway track for most of the day. The Spey from an old railway bridge. Bench with a view. Happy bunny on the trail in the morning sunshine. Yellow pimpernel, an evergreen perennial which has protective magical properties, but no known medical uses. The malt whisky distilleries were starting to come thick and fast. This is the Tamdhu distillery. The Knockandoo distillery. The Dalmunak distillery. The Spey kept me company most of the way, as did 3 young German lads, who, like me, were also walking the trail downriver. Most of the other walkers I met were walking the trail in the opposite direction, but it made sense to me, and the Germans, to walk downriver with the sun and prevailing wind behind us. I think my German friends couldn't quite fathom out how this little old lady was managing to keep pace with them each day. And then I visited the Aberlour malt whisky distillery, where I died and went to heaven after I tasted a wee dram of some very expensive malt whisky on the house. Here is my wee dram. I had always thought that I didn't like whisky until I tried this, and deep joy, I have never tasted anything like it. I was ruined for life. I was thinking about buying some until the chap who I was badgering told me that half a bottle cost £155. Yes, you heard that right. £155. Sadly, I had to leave it there and depart with my tail between my legs. Henceforth, only exclusive malts will do for me. My evening snifter, basking in the evening sunshine, provided as a special treat by my B&B. It was nice. They blend it themselves, but not as nice as the Aberlour malt. Day 6, Craigellachie to Fochabers, 16 miles. I didn't take many photos on day 6 because it rained pretty heavily most of the day, but I was snug and dry inside my rain gear. Much of the day was spent walking through forests like the one shown here. Not quite as captivating as my ancient Caledonian forests, but still very atmospheric and muddy. Light relief was provided by my German mates, who were more or less keeping pace with me. Some mad cyclists who lost half of their party when they took the wrong turning down the trail, a friendly gamekeeper who gave me the lowdown on wildlife management in the area, and a forest ranger who also provided me with even more interesting info about the same subject. I made a short diversion off the trail to visit this viewpoint at the Ordiquish Earth Pillars, which is supposed to be the best view of the Spey, but perhaps not the best on a wet day like the one I was experiencing. Day 7, Fochabers to Buckie, 15 miles. View of the Spey as I was leaving Fochabers. The sun emerged again to power me through my final day on the trail. There was a lot of leopard's bane along the trail. Leopard's bane is moderately toxic with anti-inflammatory, antiviral, and antioxidant properties. Spey Bay, where the Spey pours into the Moray Firth. I visited the Dolphin Centre. Needless to say, I didn't see any of the dolphins, seals, otters, or ospreys which are supposed to frequent the area. These are the closest to dolphins that I was ever going to see. And ditto ospreys. Spey Bay with Buckie in the distance, looking a bit bleak in the rain. I was met by a pretty display as I entered Buckie. The end of the Speyside Way and my penultimate national and great trail. The Southern Upland Way will be my final one. My friend Wendy, who met me at the end of the trail, and I had a wonderful post-walk trip to Cullen, where we stuffed ourselves at a great vegan cafe and then went to visit Bow Fiddle Rock at Port Nocky. The quartzite rock is a natural sea arch, which is a great nesting place for seabirds. Lessons learnt. Whiskey can take you to heaven. The ancient Caledonian forests are places of deep magic. Strathspey is the part of the Spey Valley that runs between Aviemore and Craigellachie and is one of the main centres of the Scottish whisky industry. It is also a type of Scottish country dancing. Otters continue to be highly elusive creatures.